I'm Benjamin, welcome to my book club. Let's talk about the first few chapters of The Forge of God by Greg Bear. Alright, first few chapters of The Forge of God. Down pat. Let's talk about it. So, we got to page 30. End of chapter 3, start of chapter 4. And so far the writing structure is really interesting actually. Not only do we have more of a traditional chapter structure, we also, before most of the chapters, seem to have these little perspective sections which appear to be media excerpts. So far there's been like a couple of interviews and a talk about a science conference, like a little report about it, that I guess gives you a little bit of perspective about what's going on in the rest of the world during the time frame. Also, during the chapters, we have a lot of date headings, so we know what day things are happening on, which is exciting. I really like things like that. One of my favourite Warhammer books has a similar setting, the Mark of Kauth, but I'll talk about that one another day. So, what's happened? So, first off, we're introduced to three characters, three viewpoint characters anyway, who I assume are going to go on to be our main characters. The first one is Arthur. He's an astronomer. Used to be the scientific advisor to the late president, who was assassinated a couple of years ago, so that's interesting. I'm sure that'll come back later. So Arthur's at a family function with his wife and his young boy at what appears to be his place, some sort of retirement it seems, when he gets a call from a friend of his, another astronomer, and gets told that one of the moons of Jupiter, Europa, is just missing. And he seems kind of blasé about this. One of the problems I have so far in the book is that this seems to be gigantic news that everyone is just kind of okay about. I just think that if a moon of Jupiter went missing, we'd all kind of care for a bit longer. But I am probably wrong. Then the book jumps 6 months. It even drops a note there talking about how the disappearance of the moon was very important for a short time, but now has dropped off of the news cycle to the dismay of some scientists. Next we're introduced to another character, this time a geologist, called Edward Shaw. And he's out camping in Death Valley in America when they come across, him and his friends come across a hill, a mountain, I think they call it a lava cone that shouldn't be there. It's not unusual for the area, there are others there, but this one isn't on any maps, isn't on any charts, and it's a very well mapped, well charted area, so it's very confusing. And during the process of exploring it, they find what appears to be an alien being lying on the ground injured. It reaches out to them with its weird three-eyed head and says, "Bring the night," which they interpret as meaning the shade. So they rush off to get the tent to shade him, or it, and the alien continues to say that it's sorry, but it's bad news. And that's all we hear from the alien so far. They end up lying to the Air Force, saying that they've found a crashed MiG with an alive Russian pilot, to try and trick the Air Force into coming out, because they know that no Air Force people are going to come out if they tell them it's an alien. Then we're back with Arthur, and it turns out that what he used to do for the president was he headed the Extraterrestrial Communication Society for him, which was then later dissolved by the sit-in president. But he now is talking to a friend of his, asking him to come back and work for them, and work for the president, because Australia has discovered another Ayers Rock, which shouldn't be there, which is very similar to the lava cone discovered in Death Valley, and Australia is claiming to have little green men and an alien spacecraft on their soil. Turns out his friend is worried about taking the job because he's got leukemia. He's just found out, and that's kind of a sad moment. But he does accept the job, and it seems they're going to go work together, go to Australia, see what this is about. And we also find out that the Air Force did pick up this alien from Death Valley. Then we're introduced to the last character so far, Trevor Hicks, a science reporter. We don't really learn a lot in Chapter 3, other than Trevor Hicks has a book that he's just written about First Contact, a fiction novel. So I'm sure he's going to get tapped in here somewhere. He's a very well-respected reporter talking about science-related articles. And he's a big proponent for sort of corporate-run space investigation and exploration in the SpaceX apart from that, not much else happens in that chapter, so we'll see what else happens. So far, I'm really enjoying it. I think it's going to be good. I can't believe the Europa disappearing isn't a big thing. It's a really important moon. It's the one that might have life underneath, because it might have a water core. It might have water underneath the ice. And it's very interesting. But it's just gone, and people are not super worried about it. Arthur makes a point in chapter 2 that maybe Ayers Rock, the new one, and maybe this lava cone in Death Valley actually made of parts of Europa, and that's why Europa's gone. It's been used to make these new mountains on Earth, which will be interesting. So we do know from the back of this that the things in Australia are going to be friendly robots, promising an era of peace. We just know that from the blurb. But it'll be interesting to see where that goes. I'm assuming that all three of our characters are going to make their way to Australia, and we'll see what's going on there. And presumably my guess so far is that the alien from Death Valley is going to be on the right side of things. They're going to come here to warn us about the friendly robots in Australia. That's what I think. Anyway, we're going to move on. The next chunk of the book we're going to read is up to page 62, which is chapters 4 through 10. So 4 through 10 is the next kind of 31 pages. So I'll catch up with you in the next video and we'll talk about those ones. Thanks very much.